Hello everyone tuning in. Welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm broadcasting to you this IELTS from Budapest, Central Europe, Hungary, where we are into fall. All right, so today we're going to be looking at an IELTS Task 1, combination of a couple of bar charts. It's a very common type of question for the academic IELTS Task 1. So, just a quick reminder, our materials are coming from our websites as usual. So if you're studying for academic IELTS, I highly recommend going to aehelp.com and joining our full course there. Spend a couple dollars, learn the right strategies, pass the IELTS the first time with good bands, rather than trying to do it again and paying a ton of money. If you're studying for general IELTS, please visit us at gieltshelp.com and join the full course there. Of course, the Task 1 is different in our general IELTS than our academic IELTS for the videos, the full course, and the practice exams. So definitely check us out there. You can download our app now from your iTunes or from Google Play. Look for Academic IELTS Help. Look for our logo. Download that. There's some free materials there for you. If you like those, you can purchase more of them with some in-app purchases. You can also buy our original exam books, 2 academic exam books with 3 exams each, or 2 general ones from Amazon. Search for AE Helps Academic IELTS. If you're General IELTS, please search for GE Helps General IELTS. All right, let's keep putting along here. Start to the streaming week. Lots of energy going on. If you have questions about our products or about IELTS, don't be shy. You can always send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com. That's my name, at aehelp.com. Hi, everyone joining and sending me some salutations. Hi, Gurjeet. Hi, Mohit. Hi, Deepa, Nepal. Hi, Sagar. Good to see so many of you in today's class. Just a quick reminder of our schedule. A little bit of a old print here. It's from October the 3rd until October the 6th. We have it here. So today we're doing Task 1 bar charts. Tomorrow we're going to do a grammar lesson. On the 5th, we'll do some reading practice. On the 6th, we'll do some speaking part 3 practice. And on the 7th, we'll do a members chat class. Members, sorry about the class last week. We had an internet issue for the entire area of the city. There's not much I could do about that. But we'll make that up in the future. 9th and 10th, Monday, Tuesday, no class as usual. All right, students. So let's have a peek at today's questions. So here is the Task 1 question for today. So, of course, writing, for those of you who are somewhat familiar with IELTS, is the third section in the sit-down exam. It's the last part of the sit-down exam because speaking is done separately. And you open up the writing section of your exam booklet and you'll find 2 questions. You'll find a Task 1 question and a Task 2 question. They will suggest that you spend no more than 20 minutes on Task 1, and they will suggest that you spend the other 40 minutes on Task 2. You have a full hour for the writing. They will not tell you when your 20 minutes is up for Task 1. It's up to you to strategically organize your time. I have seen it with some students where they're much better at Task 1 than Task 2, so then try to even spend more time with Task 2. With this Task 1, they include into the question, write minimum 150 words. That means you have to write at least 150 words. If you do not write 150 words, you start to lose marks for task incompletion. Okay, so you'll see in the question that it will say write at least 150 words. If you write 200 words, is that bad? No, absolutely not. If you're looking for high bands, like band 7.5 or higher, it's probably a pretty good idea to write closer to 200, 220 words in that 20 minutes than 150 words, okay? So make sure to pay attention to that. Okay, let's read this question together. So the graphs below show the number of visitors to 2 cities in a given year. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, students, so what is the first step that you should be taking when you read this question in your academic IELTS? So what's your step number 1? What should you do? You're looking at this question and you're going, all right, this is what I need to do. And you go ahead and you do it. And it's kind of a 2-step process here. Ghost Gamer 136 says, paraphrase the question, yes and. Okay, yes and. So you paraphrase and do something more. Okay, identifying the topic of the question, Jeffrey, you can do that. It's not so important for task 1 as it's quite straightforward and it's an expository essay. So you paraphrase and what? I've said this in past classes. You don't analyze quite yet. You paraphrase and do what? It's a very important second step here, and this will absolutely help you to increase your band score for this question. And I bet that you can get at least a half band more just by remembering this important piece of information. No, it's not something to attract the reader, Eunice. This is simply task 1 expository essay. So remember this, okay? Your first step, well, look at these, is to paraphrase and. So step 1 is paraphrase and it's a very important and, ladies and gentlemen. Give additional details. Okay? So when we look at this question, for our overview, our first sentence should be a paraphrase of this question and giving more details. So where can we give more details? Okay? Give me that information. And you can start the overview with this. So this is actually the beginning of your overview. So here's our overview. So let's begin now. So these, and you can write, please write these into the chat. So what are we actually looking at here? The question says, the graphs below. Now don't use the word below in your paraphrase because you don't want to refer to the actual sheet. But what are we actually looking at here? Are we just simply looking at graphs? No, we're looking at 2 bar graphs, right? So immediately start with that. You see there's 1 bar graph here, and then you see that there's another bar graph here. So instead of just saying these graphs, say these 2 bar graphs, okay, or bar charts, up to you. One's charts is more British English, graphs is more American English. It's fine to mix and match. Okay, so instead of just saying these graphs, you say these 2 bar graphs. Instead of show, there's a million ways to say show. Well, maybe not a million, but lots of ways. You want to say something like depict. Okay, so always paraphrase that word. Keep going. So let's see what you come up with here. Okay, so these 2 bar graphs depict the number. Instead of the number, what can I say? Ghost Gamer, remember your plurals and your singulars, and you should use a word instead of the number for 2 in this case. So these 2 bar charts depict, not depicts. Depicts would be if it's singular, right? Illustrate is good too. Quantity for number is okay. I think there's a better word, Naveen, than that. Dollar, Aminov, yes, amount of. Visitors, what's another way to say visitors? So these 2 bar charts depict the amount of, okay, instead of visitors, what can I say? So use your quick thinking here. Make sure you're Brain gears are turning. Tourists is okay. Unknown boy. Sheila, foreigners is okay. Absolutely. So far, so good. You should be doing this quickly, by the way, in the actual exam, girls and guys. So practice it at home before you sit the exam. These two bar graphs depict the amount of tourists. Okay. Now, should I just be repeating the two cities in a given year? How should I finish this sentence? What should I do to finish this sentence and really show the examiners that, hey, look, I'm not just paraphrasing here. I'm giving you a bit more of the actual overview, so I'm giving you a true overview or a general glance of this information, right? So how should I finish the sentence? Harsh, I can do something more, Harsh Patel, than just say two mega cities or different places. Have a look at the charts. Okay. First one, Seattle. Second one, Niagara Falls. Right? What's the given year? 2012, right? I'm sure a lot of you will get that. It's given there. So these two bar graphs depict the amount of tourists to, it's my touchpad, to Seattle and Niagara Falls in 2012. All right? So that's the kind of sentence that's going to put you on path to a high IELTS band score. So you're not just simply paraphrasing, but remember this really important piece of information here, the giving additional details, okay? So be sure to give additional details, all right? I'm going to really emphasize that for you because if you do just that, if suddenly you need to go feed your children or you're running off to school and you've caught this much of this lesson and you remember it for your IELTS and you do it, I promise you, you've just probably improved your band score by 0.5, okay? Amount is okay. Amount of tourists, sure, that's fine. It's telling me not, so maybe it's going to say, hey, it's not the number of tourists. Yeah, amount is usually for non-count. So somebody said another word. These two bar graphs depict the quantity, you can say that, of tourists to Seattle and Niagara Falls 2012. That was good question. Whoever has that Cyrillic name, I'm guessing by your icon it's a female name, but I can't read Cyrillic. So good question about the amount. Yeah, amount is not the best word for that because we can count the tourists, of course. That's what the graphs are showing. And amount is used usually for non-count, like the amount of water, okay? All right, so these two bar graphs depict the quantity of tourists to Seattle and Niagara Falls in 2012. Let's jump back to the question. Now it says, summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So, are we done with our overview? Not quite. Okay, not quite. I don't think so. I think we need to add a little bit more to our overview. There's definitely some good information that we can add. So what should we do next? What is our next step? What is step number 2? Okay, so step number 1, we're paraphrasing the question. We're starting off our overview. We give additional details. What do we do now? Sheila, you're jumping ahead a little bit. Same with you, Shabazz. You don't need to think about the highest and lowest yet. Now is when you want to identify those trends and your points of comparison, your axes data and your units, Naveen. Absolutely. So let's take a look at that. Always take a close look at your axes data. And make sure not to just jump over that. Okay, so always be sure to carefully analyze the y and the x. So here we can see that the y-axis goes from 0 to 2.5 million visitors, right? And that's, of course, for Seattle. And then here we can see that the y-axis goes from January until December. So we have that full year of 2012, okay? So we're looking at this, and we're looking at this here, okay? All right, so pay attention to that. Let's have a look at the second one. Woohoo, look at that. So here again, we have January to December, and here we have 0 to, wait, what's that? 4.5 million. So even though the trend looks somewhat similar for most of the year, the y-axis here is very different. It's a range of 0 to 4.5 million versus a range of 0 to 2.5 million. So we might want to include that into our overview. Also, we can see this here is a very similar, can even go a little bit further, is a very similar pattern in both cities, right? So look at that. I can line them up and basically get the same type of pattern, okay? So here we have 1, 2, 3. Very important points. So let's talk about that a little bit in the overview. I might want to save this for my summary, okay? And we'll talk more about that. Sometimes students say, oh, what? Wait, summary? I need a summary for task 1. It is a good idea. I'll show you that later on as we get near the end of the lesson. So you might want to save this overall trend pattern for the summary, especially when you've realized that here there's a significant difference on the y-axis. So I might not include both this point and this point into the overview. I might save this one for the summary, okay? All right, so please describe the axes in the overview in this case, okay? Write your example sentences, and I'll write mine. Hopefully they'll match. So take a couple of seconds, just write it into the chat, see what your fellow students say about this point here and this point here. Okay? By the way, bonus question to some of our regular viewers. What type of data is this and what type of data is that? Okay. So Sunset Swallow says, for Seattle in the 3 months of the beginning and the end of the year, tourists are in the lower number, while in the summer they are in higher numbers. Sunset Swallow, you're jumping ahead to the analysis, and you're somewhat on track, but you definitely want to be describing a little bit more for the overview. Sami Chowdhury says this is nominal data. You're absolutely right if you're talking about the x-axis. Sami, please, full sentences, communicate clearly. So this is nominal data, and this is, I haven't seen anybody say it, this is interval data, okay? It's good to know those words for university and for IELTS. So nominal data, where it's names of months in this case, and this is interval data, where the differences in numbers are equal distant. Okay? So, let's describe that in the overview. So the x and the y. When observing the x and y axes, plural is with an E, okay? Axes, closer. Two important details become clear. The y-axes show the same nominal data of months from January of 12 months. You don't need to write the word, you can just write the number there. 12 months from January to December, while the x-axes show the number of tourists from 0 to 2.5 million, and 0 to 4.5 million for Seattle and Niagara Falls, respectively. Okay, so if some of you were watching those comma grammar classes last week, you'll notice this important use of the comma popping up here with this word here of respectively. What does that tell my reader? So using this comma and using the word respectively, what does that tell my reader in an intelligent way in this case? And by the way, if you're writing like this, you're on a path to a band 9, okay? I'll tell you that for sure. Okay, so again, this is my overview. It's 2 sentences. First one's quite simple. Second one much more complex and detailed. These 2 bar graphs depict the quantity of tourists to Seattle and Niagara Falls in 2012. When observing the X and Y axes closer, 2 important details become clear. The y-axes show the same nominal data of 12 months from January to December, while the x-axes show the number of tourists from 0 to 2.5 million and 0 to 4.5 million for Seattle and Niagara Falls, respectively. Okay, let's see what you girls and guys are writing. I think there's some good information coming up there. Shabazz, you can use the same structure in a line graph. You should, overview, body, and summary. Overall, the winter months, which obtained the most modest number of visitors, most modest is awkward, whereas summer months seem to be more frequented in both Seattle and Niagara Falls. That's going to be good for the body paragraph. We're not there yet. Naveen says, at first glance, the y-axis illustrates the number of travelers visiting to 2 places at an interval of 500,000, and the x-axis depict the months of the year. Naveen, that's good too. I mean, if you're writing at that level, you're going to be getting a band 8 for sure, as long as you keep that up. All right? So you're doing well. Okay? If you want to get into a bit more detail, you can. All right? Now, some people think, oh, that's too much for the overview. No, it's not. Again, remember, if you're going for band 7, 5, higher, as I mentioned, your minimum is 150 words, okay? So you're more likely writing closer to 250 words, 200 to 220 words for those higher band scores. Okay, now we can analyze, all right? And now we can say things like there are less visitors in the winter months. Now, careful though, because we're not just talking about winter and summer. We're talking about 4 seasons here, right? There's also spring and fall. So now, again, before you write your essay, so this is in the very beginning. Very good, Naveen, very good. And I can see that. I can see that from your writing skills. So very importantly, you indicate your points of comparison. Okay, so starting with the highest is a good idea. Again, remember the questions for task 1 pretty much always ask, summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features. Okay, so don't get lost in details. Usually the graphs, charts, diagrams contain a lot of information, more than most people can explain in 20 minutes. So you're focusing on the main features first. Go from the most important to the least important. That way you don't miss out, okay? All right, so identify those main features, your points of comparison, and then step by step go through them, okay? So clearly we can see here that July and August were the highest. Now the reason I'm writing 3 here is because I already wrote 1 and 2 for the axes, right, and the trend line. So July, August, summer, definitely the highest number of visitors to Seattle. And if I go to Niagara Falls, bam, same thing, okay? IELTS is not, third-year university statistics, so they're going to give you some quote-unquote fairly simple graphs and charts to work with. You just have to stay calm and pay attention, okay? All right. So that's number 3. The lowest, well, we can see the lowest are here, right? And here. So that's definitely getting into late fall. Now here we have something interesting, so we'll indicate that. Okay. Let's take a look, see if the lowest is true for these. Yep. This is definitely the lowest here as well, January and February. So we can claim that the winter months are the lowest, January and February, number of visitors. And then there is a significant increase going towards summer, and then again a sharp decrease in the number of visitors every month going to winter. Okay. Now here, however, you can see that December is quite low also. So this is a significant difference. Okay. So here we have 4, then here we have 5. Here we have 6, and here we have 7. Hopefully all of you understand what I just did there, okay? So here for my analysis, my highest point is summer, my lowest point is winter, okay? And then I have points going down here for 6. So I can talk about the fact that the highest seasons are summer, the lowest seasons are winter. There's a gradual increase from winter to summer. There's a decrease afterwards. And there's an exception with visitors to Niagara Falls because we have, again, a high number of visitors in December for some reason, okay? So it's not so difficult always, Once you practice this a little bit, you get the flow of it, you get the hang of it. So let's describe these points, okay? Now, don't get lost in numbers, okay? Here it's 3.5 million. Here it's 4 million, so it's double the amount of visitors. We don't need to get lost in details. Just describe the trends. We don't need to get lost in numbers is what I mean here. So just describe the trends, okay? So here, and I'll keep those points up there for you. So initially, it is easy to observe from the 2 tall bars in both graphs that both of these cities have the highest number of visitors in July and August, the summer months. Also, the short graphs of January and February clearly indicate that low tourist season is mostly in winter. The number of tourists to both locations rapidly increase towards summer, during spring, towards summer, and then sharply decline as fall sets in. All right, now I did that on purpose there. Hold it just a second. You didn't see me type that, but there it is. I didn't see the camera go to sleep. My bad. Sorry about that. Usually I catch that one. Just give me 1 second here. So I did actually type up points 3, 4, and 5, at least 6 even, in a matter of just a minute there. Okay. Yep, don't panic. I'll get the screen back for you. No problems. So I just wrote this up real quickly as I was saying it. Initially, it is easy to observe from the 2 tall bars in both graphs that both of these cities have the highest number of visitors in July and August. A little bit of word repetition there with both and both. I might want to paraphrase that. The summer months. Also, the short bars of January and February. So here I want to do a little bit of a correction. Of January and February clearly indicate that low tourist season is mostly in winter. The number of tourists to both locations rapidly increase during spring towards summer and then sharply decline as fall sets in. Okay? Fall, another way to say it, of course, is autumn. Okay? If you don't know how to spell autumn like me, then just stay with the word fall. Now, what I wanted to show you with this is that I wrote that in a matter of just a minute. So once you have, there's that silent N. So once you have the data indicated on the graphs and charts and you know your points of comparison, you can write very quickly, okay? So that's what you're going towards. Now, I want to indicate that difference at the end here with December, right? That's my point 7. So one place, 1 month, where these two cities clearly deviate in the number of visitors is December. Okay, and then here again I use a comma because I'm going to add a definitive clause. Okay, so I want to explain that a little bit more because that's an interesting difference. So 1 month where these two cities clearly deviate in the number of visitors is December, while Seattle experiences very few tourists, as in the other winter months. Niagara Falls has a spike in visitors. Okay, so what I'm describing here for some of you that are joining now is this one key difference in the two graphs where December here for Niagara Falls has this spike where you have a sudden jump in the amount of data compared to the previous months. That would be a spike. So if this were a line graph, it would be a clear spike, okay? So remember that word spike. That's a useful vocabulary for you. Here, there's a continuous decline in the number of visitors. So December has less than November, okay? So there's no spiking there, all right? So that was point number 7 that I compared, all right? So far so good. We're looking at this. These two bar graphs depict the quantity of tourists to Seattle and Niagara Falls in 2012. When observing the X and Y axes closer, two important details become clear. The y-axes show the same nominal data of 12 months from January to December, while the x-axes show the number of tourists from 0 to 2.5 million and 0 to 4.5 million for Seattle and Niagara Falls, respectively. Then I go into the analysis and end up with this quote-unquote body paragraph for my expository essay. Harmeet Singh has a good question here. So Harmeet Singh says, sir, can we write each bar chart in separate paragraphs? Yes, you can, but I don't recommend it. If you are to get two bar graphs like this one, I would definitely do the combined comparison and contrast right away. I think, number one, it's easier, especially when you have these very similar trends, these parabolic shapes. Okay, so definitely it's easy to compare them in this way. I think if you write one paragraph for one and then the other and then compare them, it's a little bit awkward for this question, unnecessary and confusing. So I don't recommend it, okay? Animesh, it's not too lengthy. I'm going to show you the word count again. Remember, the questions state write at least 150 words. If you're going for band 7 or higher, you should be looking at closer to 200, 220 words of good writing, okay? So initially, it is easy to observe from the two tall bars in both graphs that these cities, you can cut the both out there completely, so there's no repetition. If I were reviewing that, I would just cross that out, one strike-through line, so that these cities have the highest number of visitors in July and August, the summer months. Also, the short bars of January and February clearly indicate that low tourist season is mostly in winter. The number of tourists to both locations rapidly increase during spring towards summer and then sharply decline as autumn sets in. 1 month where these two cities clearly deviate, remember that word, that's a good vocabulary again. Deviate means one goes one way, the other one goes the other way. In the number is the number of visitors in December, okay? Let's do a quick correction there. Again, just a little strike through and then changing the letter above. While Seattle experiences very few tourists, as in other winter months, Niagara Falls has a spike in visitors. Okay, so now the summary. And for the summary, I would include 2 points here, keeping them very simple. Okay, again, a little bit of planning goes a long way. So for the summary, I would talk about 2 points. Remember, we left this for the end. So I would talk about this trend being very, very similar in both cities throughout the year. So the actual trend, we can see here, overlaid is very, very similar. And that's the main similarity. So in summary, this trend is the main similarity. And in summary, the main difference is the sheer number of students, okay? So that's what I would mention there, okay? Shabin, you're right. Deviate means to change, but it also means to change in a different direction. So it's a little bit more detailed than that. So Custer says, interestingly enough, the outstanding difference between these two bars is the increase in the number of visitors of Niagara in December compared to Seattle. Custer, you're half right. It's not really this. This isn't actually the main big difference. This is a detailed difference. The main big difference is the sheer number of visitors. You have 4.5 million there, and you have 2.5 million here. So if we're looking at these closer, you can see that the numbers are basically double. Because here you have 2 million at the highest, and here you have 4 million at the highest. And since the pattern is the same, we can basically state that it's double the number of visitors, okay? So that's what we should write in the summary, all right? And that's what we're going to do now. So in summary, and write in summary for task 1, okay? So write in summary. Don't write in conclusion. There's a difference between a summary and a conclusion. When you say in summary, it basically means that you're simply explaining what's going on. You're not actually giving any suggestions or any messages or inferences or any guesses. You're just simply in brief, claiming what you can observe and express in summary, in short, okay? So in summary and in conclusion are not the same. To recapitulate, unknown boy, yeah, that's okay too. Recapitulating is maybe a little bit more detailed than a summary. Overall, Sangeeta, I wouldn't use that in the summary as much as in the overview, because overall is kind of a synonym for overview. So it's better to use that in your overview. Overall, we can see that these two cities, okay? And again, don't use in conclusion, Sagar. Use in conclusion in task 2, okay? To sum up is good. Buzifash, sum up is good. So in summary, it is... Both of these cities show the same trends in the number of visitors at various months throughout the year. However, the key notable difference is that Niagara Falls receives roughly twice the number of tourists in any given month. Okay, so all I did here is I summed up this trend and this number here that I can observe on the y-axis. So let's see how many words we have there, girls and guys. So some of you are saying, hey, I think that might be a little bit too long. Again, remember, I'm showing you an example here that's going to get you a band 8, 9 for sure. So here we have 213 words. Okay. So if I take out these words, you shouldn't write summary and you shouldn't write analysis. Okay, so leave those words out. So in this case, our word count, and it's good to do this at home, check your word count, see what you're doing. Word count is 211 words. Okay, now that's pretty good. If you're going for band 8, band 9, you're wanting to end up roughly at around that many words, and you want to do it in 20 minutes. We did it in 40, but that's because I'm talking to you, lots of explanation. I'm reading your chats, your comments. So if I weren't doing that, if you're really curious, how fast would Adrian do that if he didn't have to talk to us, teach us, explain all these steps? I would have probably done that in 10 minutes. Okay, so if I can do 211 words like this in 10 minutes, yes, I've been teaching IELTS, yes, this is my profession and so on. But a student who's looking for university, who's practicing for IELTS, practicing their English, should be able to do something quite similar in 20 minutes, okay? So this is your essay. If you write like this, you will be fine. Now, any questions or comments about this? So anything that's not clear, anything that you want me to maybe revisit, that you want me to speak about again? Mahesh Bakhdari says, sir, why are you not using the data? I'm using it a little bit. So you can see here in the overview, I do say that there's 12 months. I do give a quick snapshot that the tourists range from 0 to 2.5 million and 4.5 million. You might, if you're really good, you might include a little bit of data on these here. Highest is 4 million. Lowest is 500,000, so or 500,000. But remember, girls and guys, and this is very important for university as well, we're humans. When we have graphs and charts, when we give presentations to a classroom, to an audience, in a business meeting, our goal is not to, like a robot, mirror the data that can be seen in the graph. So our goal is not to say January and February get 500,000 visitors while July and August get 4 million visitors. On the other hand, the month of April is somewhere between the two at 2 million visitors. Okay, your audience can see that. If you're giving a presentation, they can see the numbers. Your goal as a human is to interpret data. Okay, so again, I'm going to emphasize this. When you're giving presentations on graphs, charts, diagrams, your goal, your primary goal, is to interpret data into human language, okay? So your investors, your audience, your colleagues, your fellow students, they want to know what's the most, what's the least, what's the change, what's the rate of change, okay? So that's what they're interested in, all right? Rashni Kunte says, I have a doubt about grammar. We can use here because I have a bad habit. Rashni, if you're curious about grammar, I really suggest using the editing services on our website. to get that valuable feedback, see where you're making mistakes, and then make corrections. Feedback for writing, ladies and gentlemen, is super important. So once you've had a chance to practice a bit, send me your work through our website. If you go to our website, you'll see these green buttons. I'll show you that real quick. So if you log in, that was, oh, no internet. Interesting. We have internet there, though. Let's see. Let me see if I can bring that back for you. Anyway, you can send me your work on the website. You will see a green task 1 and task 2 button. You can click on those, okay? Let's see. Bharat Kadka says, no, it's not okay to mention data in overall. Bharat Kadka, yeah, you're right. So you don't really want to mention detailed data in the overview, in the summary, absolutely. In those 2 places, for sure not. In the body analysis, maybe a couple places for the highest, lowest, but not a lot of details, okay? Kesra Reza says, what about using the term hits a plateau? Yep, for a line graph, I probably wouldn't use that so much. For a bar graph, Kesra. Here, we might say that there's a plateau. So what a plateau means is that there's a flattening of the data. So if we go like this is kind of a plateau. Okay, it comes from French, this word. The top of a mountain that's flat is called a plateau or a high plain. So yes, better for a line graph than for a bar graph. That was a good question, okay? Good point, Naveen. So Naveen says, human language works as paraphrasing as well. Absolutely, that's what you're doing. You're paraphrasing into human language. So your goal, Naveen, you're right on. You hit the nail on the head. When you're looking at data and numbers, your goal as a presenter, as a writer, is to paraphrase that data into what's called human language instead of math or machine language, okay? Mutadila has a question. What's the meaning of weightage? Okay, that's a good question. Weightage is the amount of significance given to a point, okay? So if something has a lot of weightage, it means it's very significant. If it has little weightage in the equation or in the data, it means it's not that important. Okay, girls and guys, let me see if I can bring that back for you. Let me try one more time here. All right. Log in as the admin. And let me see if, so I just want to give that little bit of feedback that was important there. So let's jump into a student account here. So when you log into our website, you can see these 2 green buttons here, and you can also see this last one, additional services. So that's where you can submit your writing work to us. And again, you can sign up for that website at ahelp.com for academic and gieltshelp.com for general. So it's really important to get feedback for your writing, okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me for today. Tomorrow, we're going to do a grammar lesson. We'll look at some important grammar that you need to use on your IELTS exam. I'll post that later today. You will try General Morgan, then definitely sign up with us at gieltshelp.com. You can also check out our General IELTS YouTube channel. It's General IELTS Help YouTube channel. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Make sure to practice these skills at home. Again, remember, step 1, paraphrase task 1 question with details. Give details. Step number 2, plan your points of comparison carefully from most relevant to least relevant. Then write the analysis, write the summary, and you'll do just fine, all right? Much love to all of you. Have a great rest of your day, and I hope you have some sweet dreams. If you're going to bed, wake up fresh tomorrow and push forward. Bye for now, everyone.